The rain drummed against the window pane, blurring the lights of nighttime Boston into oily smudges. On nights like these, one usually craves comfort, warmth, and the smell of fresh coffee. But in the loft on the North Shore, a different aroma hung in the air, the scent of cheap whiskey, barely masked by the cloying sweetness of vanilla from an aromatic candle. Emily sat on the floor, leaning against the cold brick wall, staring at her phone as if it might explode at any moment. The screen glowed, displaying the same message for what felt like the 1,000th time. "I'm sorry, Em. Couldn't help it. He's my son."
Son.
These words echoed in her head, intertwining with the rhythmic tapping of raindrops on the windowsill. A month ago, her life had been perfect, like a picture from a glossy magazine. Daniel, her husband, a successful architect, always attentive, caring, bringing her flowers for no reason, and sending sweet messages in the middle of the workday. Their loft with panoramic windows overlooking the bay, filled with light and modern art, was their sanctuary. Emily, the owner of a small but thriving gallery, adored her work and her husband. They were that couple everyone looked at with a hint of envy, radiating calm and confidence in tomorrow. But tomorrow had arrived, and it was nothing like she'd imagined. It was shattered into 1,000 shards, each one piercing her soul. It all started, as it often does, with something small. Daniel's overly long business trip to Chicago. Unusually frequent calls from a project colleague, some Chloe, whose voice sounded too young and bright, even over the phone. At first, Emily brushed off these thoughts, attributing everything to fatigue and being overly busy. She trusted Daniel implicitly. He was her rock, her support, her everything. Then subtle changes appeared. Daniel started turning off his phone at night more often, citing the need to focus. His gaze became more distant, his smile less genuine. He stopped hugging her as tightly in the mornings. And most importantly, that spark, that invisible pull that had always been between them, was gone. Emily felt that something had changed, but she was afraid to name it. She would wake up at night, listening to his steady breathing, and each time her heart would clench with fear. What if he no longer belonged to her? The turning point came on a Friday evening. Daniel returned home late, smelling of a stranger's perfume, which he carelessly tried to mask with his cologne. Emily said nothing. She just looked at him, and a silent question was in her eyes. He tried to hug her, but she recoiled. He understood. For the first time in their years of marriage, a wall, thick and impenetrable, had risen between them. The next morning, while Daniel slept, Emily couldn't resist. Her finger trembled as she picked up his phone. She had never done this before. Never. But now something inside her screamed, demanding answers. And she found them, in the messages with Chloe. Hundreds of messages, filled with tenderness, future plans, dreams. And one photo, a small boy, about 5 years old, with curly blonde hair and a painfully familiar smile. Daniel's smile. Emily's world collapsed in an instant. The air was knocked out of her lungs, and her heart clenched so tightly it felt like it would burst. She felt a burning in her eyes, but no tears fell. There was only shock, cold, paralyzing shock. Daniel woke up to her quiet gasp. He saw the phone in her hand, the photo on the screen, and the expression on her face. Guilt, shame, and despair flashed in his eyes. "Ing," he began, but the words caught in his throat. "Who is this?" Her voice was just a whisper, but in it was a steel note he had never heard before. Daniel lowered his head. That's my son. Finn." And now she sat in her living room, surrounded by the shattered pieces of their once perfect life. The rain continued, and each drop seemed like a tear that couldn't fall from her eyes. Daniel's message still glowed on the screen. "I'm sorry, Em. Couldn't help it. He's my son." The son. How long had he known about him? Why had he kept it a secret? And now what? How could she live with this knowledge, with this pain, with this betrayal that had seeped into every cell of her being? She was devastated, but somewhere deep inside, beneath the layer of despair, something else was stirring, something cold and hard. Hatred, or Perhaps a thirst for revenge. Emily didn't remember how the night passed. The clock on her nightstand showed 7:30 in the morning. The sun, breaking through the thick curtains, painted pale stripes on the floor. Daniel wasn't beside her. She heard a faint noise from the kitchen, the clinking of dishes, the barely audible hum of the coffee machine. He was there, and probably waiting for her to wake up, to start that inevitable, destructive conversation. Every movement brought pain, not just pain in her chest, where her heart clenched, but also in her muscles, tense from a night of stillness. She got up, feeling as if she had endured a serious physical ordeal. She stepped into the bathroom, turned on the shower. Hot streams of water poured over her skin, washing away only dirt, but not the grime that had seeped into her soul. In the mirror, a stranger looked back at her pale, with red-rimmed eyes and bags beneath them. A smile? The one that always illuminated her face had vanished, replaced by a grimace of emptiness. Dressing in an old tracksuit, Emily walked out of the bedroom. Daniel sat at the bar counter, nervously fiddling with a coffee mug. He looked disheveled. His usually neat hair was messy, and his gaze darted around, avoiding her eyes. The smell of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the acrid taste of guilt that hung in the air. "Emily," he began, his voice hoarse. She stopped in front of him, crossing her arms over her chest. "Not Emily. Just tell me, Daniel. Tell me everything." Her voice was surprisingly calm, without emotion, without hysteria. This calmness was far more terrifying than any scream. He flinched. I don't know where to begin. From the beginning. From the very beginning." She cut him off, her gaze fixed on him, forcing him to meet her eyes. Daniel took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts. "It was a long time ago, long before us. I was in my last year of college when I met her. Chloe. She was free-spirited, carefree. We dated for a few months. It was something fleeting, or so I thought back then. Then I got a job offer here in Boston, and we broke up. I thought that was it." He paused, as if bracing himself. Emily didn't move, didn't blink. She just listened. A year later, she reappeared, said she had a son. My son. I was in shock. It was unimaginable. I was just starting my career then. Everything was so uncertain, and I panicked. I offered her money, a lot of money, for her to disappear from my life and my child's life. I know it's terrible. I know I was a coward. Emily felt a bitter taste rise in her throat. Offered money? To hide? A person who was his flesh and blood? She refused, Daniel continued, his voice growing slightly louder, almost desperate. She said she didn't want money, but for me to know my son. For me to be a part of his life. She didn't demand marriage, anything like that. Just for me to see Finn sometimes. I agreed. I started visiting them. Rarely at first, then more often. Chloe moved closer to Newton so it would be easier for Finn to come to me. That is, to us when I took him. You took him? Emily's voice finally trembled. You brought him into our home? While I was at work? Or while I was asleep? Daniel shook his head. No. Never. I always met him somewhere else. In parks, playgrounds, sometimes at my studio. I never told anyone. I was afraid it would ruin everything. And you were right, Daniel. It ruined everything. Everything, Emily whispered, turning to the window. The view of the bay, usually so serene, now seemed indifferent and cruel. I love you so much, Emily. I didn't want to lose you. Finn, he's just a part of me that I couldn't deny. He's my son. I couldn't abandon him. And Chloe, she didn't pressure me. She just wanted Finn to know his father. I got tangled up. I lied to you because I was afraid you wouldn't understand. That you would leave. His words hung in the air, heavy and stifling. Emily imagined all those years. Their romantic dinners, their travels, their laughter. And every time he said he was working late or went on a business trip, he was, in fact, meeting his son. A child whose existence she hadn't even suspected. Their entire life, all their shared memories, were tainted by this lie. How old is Finn? she asked, without turning around. Point 5. He'll be 6 next month. 5 years. 5 years he had lived a double life. 5 years he had kept this secret, pretending she was the only one in his world. 5 years she had loved a ghost, an illusion. Emily turned around. There was no anger on her face, only unbearable pain and disappointment. I don't understand, Daniel. Why now? Why did this come out now? Daniel lowered his head again. Chloe, she got sick. Seriously. She needs surgery. She's afraid she won't make it. And she wanted Finn to be with me. For me to become his legal guardian. It was her last wish. Couldn't refuse her, Em. Couldn't refuse my son. Finally, tears streamed from Emily's eyes. Hot, burning trails on her cheeks. Daniel's words were like a knife, slowly twisting in the wound. He hadn't just cheated on her. He had built their life together on a lie. And now that lie had destroyed everything right down to its foundation. She felt their love, their trust, their future crumble into dust, carried away by the wind of betrayal. And somewhere, deep within her consciousness, slowly but surely, something else was stirring. Something cold and hard. Hatred, or perhaps something more. Tears streamed down Emily's cheeks, mixing with the bitter taste of realization. She didn't try to stop them. They were the only thing that felt real in this nightmare. Daniel approached her, extending a hand as if to comfort her, but she recoiled. His touch now felt defiled. Don't touch me. Her voice was hoarse, but clear. You lied to me, Daniel. For years. Every word, every hug. It was all a lie, built on the foundation of your Dainu. How could I not have noticed? He lowered his hand, his shoulders slumped. I know, Em, and I'm ready to bear any punishment. But I'm asking you, try to understand. I didn't want to hurt you. I was scared. Scared of losing everything we had. And I couldn't abandon Finn. He's my child. And me? She turned abruptly to him. What about me? I was your wife, your partner. We built a life together, made plans together. And all this time you were living another life with another woman and with another child. This isn't fear, Daniel. This is betrayal. Pure and unadulterated. Emily walked over to the panoramic windows, her gaze wandering across the gray Boston Bay. The water seemed as serene as their life had been until this morning, hiding an abyss beneath its surface. You mentioned Chloe is sick. How serious is it? She asked, her voice detached, almost indifferent. She was no longer seeking comfort or explanations. She was seeking facts. I want him to pay for this, Sarah. Emily's voice became as hard as steel. I want him to feel the same pain I do. And I want to know what my options are regarding Finn. Can I demand that he have no connection to us? To my life? Sarah pondered. Legally, it will be difficult. He is his biological father. But we can fight to separate your life as much as possible from this situation. We can request full financial disclosure from Daniel. Every dollar he spent on Chloe and Finn can be used against him in the divorce proceedings. If he used joint funds, that will be a strong argument in your favor. Emily's eyes gleamed with a cold fire. Joint funds? He spent our money on them? All those business trips? All those working late? Quite possibly, Sarah nodded. We'll find out. And we'll find out how long he's known about the child and why it only surfaced now. His actions could be deemed as concealment of assets or even fraud if he used marital funds to support his second family. This could significantly impact property division and possibly even your alimony. And as for Finn, we can try to get Daniel to pay child support, but that doesn't mean you'll be obligated to interact with him or accept him into your life. We'll work to minimize his influence on your future. Emily looked up, and a shadow of determination, mixed with anger, appeared on her face. The pain hadn't gone away, but now it was not paralyzing, but a driving force. She saw a clear path ahead of her, a path to retribution. Daniel thought he could build his life on lies and that his secrets would remain buried. He was gravely mistaken. Emily would show him the true cost of betrayal. The cold tea in Emily's cup had long gone untouched. Sarah, ever the pragmatist, had quietly ordered a second round for herself. She listened intently as Emily articulated her desires, her voice steady and devoid of the raw emotion that had shattered her just hours ago. Now it was replaced by a chilling clarity. "So, to summarize," Sarah said, her voice calm and professional, "you want the divorce to be finalized as quickly as possible. You want a full accounting of Daniel's finances, especially anything that went towards Chloe and Finn. And you want to ensure that Finn's presence in Daniel's life does not, in any way, infringe upon yours moving forward. No shared custody arrangements, no surprise visits to your gallery, no co-parenting discussions you're forced into." Emily nodded, her gaze fixed on the steam rising from Sarah's fresh cup. "Exactly. He made his choices. Now he gets to live with them. I want to build a new life, one free of his lies and his other family. And if that means hitting him where it hurts financially, then so be it." A flicker of something dark, not just anger, but a cold, burning resolve, crossed her face. He prided himself on his success, on his perfect image. Let's see how perfect it looks when his carefully constructed world crumbles. Sarah closed her notepad. "It won't be easy, Em. Daniel is a prominent figure in Boston. This will be a public and messy divorce. And Chloe's illness adds a layer of complexity. The courts will always prioritize the child's best interest. But we can certainly expose his financial misdealings within the marriage and argue for a larger share of assets, given the years of deception and the use of joint funds. We'll also work to ensure any contact he has with Finn is strictly his responsibility and doesn't involve you unless absolutely necessary. We can push for sole legal and physical custody for Daniel, with clear boundaries on your involvement." "I understand the risks," Emily stated, her voice firm. "I'm not looking for a quiet exit. I'm looking for justice. And if it means revealing the truth about Daniel to the world, then I'm prepared for that." She looked directly at Sarah, her eyes holding a new, steely glint. He thought he could have everything. A perfect wife, a successful career, and a secret family hidden in plain sight. He thought he was untouchable. Over the next few weeks, Emily moved through life in a blur. She stayed with Sarah, grateful for the quiet support and practical advice. The loft, once her sanctuary, now felt like a prison built on lies. She spent hours with Sarah, meticulously going through old bank statements, credit card bills, and travel itineraries, searching for any discrepancies, any clue that could expose Daniel's deception. Each discovery, each hidden expense, fueled her resolve. The pain of betrayal was still there, a dull ache beneath the surface, but it was overshadowed by a fierce determination. Daniel's attempts to contact her were met with silence. He sent desperate texts, left tearful voicemails, even tried to show up at Sarah's apartment. Emily ignored them all. The man who had been her world now felt like a stranger, an antagonist in a story she was determined to rewrite. Then came the first legal letter from Sarah to Daniel's lawyers. It was polite, professional, and devastatingly clear. It outlined Emily's intention to file for divorce on grounds of marital misconduct and requested full financial disclosure, including detailed records of all expenses related to a third party. The response was immediate and furious. Daniel called Emily from an unknown number, his voice frantic, pleading. "Emily, please, what are you doing? You're ruining everything. Our reputation. My career. Think about what this will do to us." Emily finally broke her silence. Her voice was calm, almost detached. "You ruined everything, Daniel. Not me. And us ceased to exist the moment you decided to live a lie. Now you'll face the consequences of your choices." She hung up, the click of the phone final and resolute. The legal battle that followed was brutal, just as Sarah had predicted. The headlines screamed. Daniel's pristine image began to crack under the weight of the allegations. His partners at the architecture firm started to distance themselves. The whispers in Boston's elite circles turned into open speculation. Chloe's illness, a private tragedy, became part of the public narrative. Her face now also splashed across tabloids as the other woman. Emily, despite the relentless scrutiny, found a strange kind of strength in the public exposure. It wasn't about revenge anymore, not entirely. It was about reclaiming her narrative, about refusing to be the naive, betrayed wife. It was about proving that even in the face of the deepest deception, one could find the courage to rebuild. The divorce was eventually finalized. Emily received a substantial settlement, more than she had initially hoped for, thanks to Sarah's relentless pursuit of Daniel's hidden expenditures. She bought a new, smaller loft, away from the bay, away from the memories. It was a blank canvas, ready for a new beginning. She poured herself into her gallery, focusing on new artists, new visions. One day, months after the divorce, Emily saw Daniel from across the street. He was walking with a young boy holding his hand. It was Finn. The boy looked happy, laughing as Daniel pointed out something in a shop window. Daniel looked thinner, older, and the confident stride she once knew was gone, replaced by a slight stoop. He caught her eye for a brief moment, and in his gaze, Emily saw not just defeat, but a profound sadness, a ghost of the man he once was. She felt a pang in her chest, not of love or regret, but of something akin to pity. He had chosen his path, and now he walked it. Emily turned away and continued down the street. The rain had stopped. The air was fresh and clean. The whisper of rust had finally faded, replaced by the quiet strength of new beginnings. Her future was hers again, unburdened by secrets, ready to be painted with colors of her own choosing.